Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Monday, June 26, 2017. Good to be back in the office after a trip down to the Mississippi Gulf Coast for Tropical Storm Cindy. Obviously, it made landfall in southwest Louisiana. The center of circulation did anyway, but the effects were felt far off to the east and into the southeast United States, from the Gulf Coast up into areas as far north as Birmingham, Alabama, with some tornadoes, and then spreading north and east from there, some of the heavy rainfall. We'll take a look at all of that in a summary here in just a moment. First up, what's happening out in the Pacific? Well, we finally have our first hurricane, and I can say it like that, like it's a good thing, because this is not going to affect any land areas. And here it is, Hurricane Dora, well off the coast of Mexico, moving off to the west-northwest. Probably going to strengthen a little bit more from here. So this is pretty much right on par with when we would expect the first hurricane in the eastern Pacific. So we're not going to be lagging behind or anything like that. We were getting close there. I want to show you this. This is really interesting. This is the infrared satellite shot. And you can see it has a fairly large eye right here in the middle. Easy to point out there. And here, of course, is the coast of Mexico. And it's far enough away that even, what little rain bands there are reaching the coast should have minimal impact overall. And you notice there, is certainly a round appearance to this system. A fairly well-developed hurricane with a fairly well-developed core, a little ragged in the eye area. But I want to show you the animation of this particular. This is sort of the last frame. This is the most recent image. Now look at the animation of this image. You see what happens? It's really got deep convection. See all those reds there? Really obvious. And even a few blacks and dark grays showing up, indicating very, very cold cloud tops in the atmosphere. And you can see right there, there's a few of them. And that's indicated over here on the right side, almost off the chart. Very, very high cloud tops. And what does that mean? That means very heavy rain underneath, deep convection, and probably a lot of wind gusts underneath that. And so what happened? Well, it all kind of dwindled away. The reds are gone, the dark grays are gone, and now we're left with just oranges and yellows. Why is that? Well, what have we been talking about here recently in the last several days and weeks? Water temperatures out this way, especially, and I guess obviously from about, let's see, when does it start losing it? Right there. So from about this point on to the west-northwest, the sea surface temperatures cooled dramatically, and we're going to look at that in a minute. But remember, I was talking about that. I was skeptical this could become a hurricane, but I tempered that with saying, hey, you never know with these systems in the eastern Pacific. They can ramp up very quickly if given the opportunity, and luckily this is nowhere close enough to land to really worry about it of any consequence. So let's see if we can grab this bar and move it out of the way. And we'll animate the old GFS here, just kind of showing you over the next few days what's going to be happening with Dora, well off the coast of Mexico, going to stay that way. You see some of this energy up here. This is the vorticity field again, maybe bringing some squalls and occasional heavy rains, etc., to portions of the southern Baja Peninsula. But overall, the vorticity signature winds down, and we can say goodbye to Dora in the next few days. Now, this works perfect with what I want to show you next, and that is the sea surface temperature anomalies. This updated just a little while ago, so this is very current, and Dora is located right in here. And isn't that perfect? It's going to head out right into that colder anomaly patch, and it'll dwindle away. And this is really, really interesting to see, and I'm going to show you why even more so in just a few minutes here. Noticing out in the ENSO regions here, the El Nino Southern Oscillation areas, or what we call the state of the ENSO. You've got the State of the Union, both on a national and a state. You're governed as a state of the state address, or the State of the Union of your state, and you have different statuses, is another way to put it. And the state of the current ENSO is still kind of a warm neutral. Some of these areas are warming up a little bit beyond the normal threshold that we would look for, 0.7 degrees above the average. But you can see as clearly as I can that we do not have any areas through here that are just showing up as bright reds, nothing filled in like this. Too bad I don't have you know how Photoshop, you can just click it and the whole thing would fill in. But you know what it looks like when it's abnormally warm across a large area. It looks like this in the Atlantic Basin. So moving over there, you can see very warm off the Iberian Peninsula still, very warm in the main development region, now moving through the Caribbean, and then cold to the north of there. And then the Gulf of Mexico, anomalously cold due to the agitating effect of Cindy. And of course, this will flip back around to where it should be by normal, probably within the next 30 days, if not sooner than that, unless we get another tropical system coming through there, which I don't see anything now, but you never know. Widening out the shot. This is, you know, boy, I tell you, you look here, the Mediterranean Sea doesn't have that much to do with the Atlantic, I guess, but that and off the Iberian Peninsula, if you look at this as a wide perspective, just this huge area of warmth south of a very large area of colder anomalies, and you can clearly see the state of the ENSO again, just kind of that warm neutral, about a half a degree Celsius warmer on average across the region than it should be. Now, if we go back and look at a couple of big hurricane seasons that pretty much all of us remember, you should anyway, and if you weren't born yet, well, you've heard about them. Yeah, we do. We get a lot of people that watch this that are kids, and I like that. That's good, because I had an interest in weather and hurricanes when I was a kid, and of course the internet. Al Gore was nowhere near inventing it yet, and that's a joke, of course, but I digress. So this is 2004, the very, very big season that saw a lot of landfall activity, focused on Florida and the Eastern Gulf, and even parts of the Carolinas too. And so what did that profile look like? Well, a much stronger overall warm AMO signal, this horseshoe shape, as the water temperatures were well above normal, all the way up to Greenland. And then you have the large patch of cold in the North Atlantic. And we saw this large patch of cold off of the Baja, and colder in the Eastern Pacific than we're seeing this year. And if we go ahead and move on to 2005, I'm going to get rid of this one. Let's look at 05, because this one seems to match a little bit more. Now, this was a very pronounced warm AMO signal, and we're lacking that in the North Atlantic this year. So let's just point out a few things. There's the North Atlantic here, all right? So now let's go to today. That was 05, this is today. Let's just go back and forth. And you can see it's much colder this year than back in 2005 in the North Atlantic. Let's see if I can get rid of that. Go away. And so let's look for some other similarities. Certainly in 2005, the main development region was a lot warmer, and the area off of California, the Baja, etc., a lot colder. And it's interesting because the ENSO area is much more similar this year than in 2004. Okay, we got rid of 04 already, but take a look. Okay, there's a lot to cover today. So here's 2017, and notice these similarities here, and we just go back and forth. I mean, that stuff off the Baja is hugely remarkable. And even what's happening and I know the maps are not completely lined up. Hey, that was 12 years ago. You take what you can get. But, you know, except for the fact, and this is a big deal here, let's just look at 05 specifically for a moment. We had a lot more of this warm water farther north into the Atlantic, and even way up here. And we didn't have any hurricanes up this far north. But remember, of the 28 named storms that we had, the ones that were so devastating to the United States formed generally, and pretty much all of them, west of this box. Katrina came out of the Bahamas. Rita came out of the Bahamas. Wilma was over here. Dennis, I don't remember precisely where it got its start, but it definitely didn't come all the way across as a named storm. And Dennis reached its peak intensity in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, which is another big difference between 05 and now, and that the Gulf of Mexico was warmer back then than it is now. So there's enough in the way of the similarities to take notice, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have a mega season. But you look back, I think the best way to, like, what is your point, Mark, is this. You look at your past seasons that were very active, and you try to see, is there a way to correlate what's happening this year and find these analogs. Is there anything analogous this year to those years? And if we look, I think that overall 2005 is the closest match, to what we're looking for. Not an exact match, but close enough. So let's leave this. You get the idea. I want to show you this. This is a different way of viewing it. And I talked about the different methodologies. So this was developed by Richard Reynolds from the Climate Prediction Center, and it is a weekly average. And we're looking at a data set, I think, that goes through 2000, the year 2000. I may be off on that, but the different way that these are derived based on your prior years, they all should be very similar. You don't want to have any drastic differences. And so overall, if you look at this, the area off the Iberian Peninsula, look, there's your 1 degree Celsius isotherm, and then there's a 2 degrees Celsius. That's crazy. And most of the Atlantic east of 40 degrees longitude is averaging a degree Celsius above the long-term average. So let's go back real quick to the NOAA NESDIS. Let's just X this out. And so this is a different methodology here. Not too different. See, there's NOAA NESDIS. The other one's the Reynolds method. But you can see that this is using, much more in the way of your colorized pixels, and this is not outlined with any contours, but we can pick it out. Very warm in here, very warm in the eastern Atlantic, cold up here, warm off the east coast, etc. So the good news is, my point here is that these are not too dissimilar at all, and this one really gives you the contours of how warm things are relative to average. And if we look at the Atlantic Basin, east of 40 degrees longitude, it's generally running about a degree or so Celsius, pretty close to it, above the long-term average. All right? So that is huge, because we are now only 6 weeks away from the peak of the hurricane season starting to ramp up. That being said, anything to look out for in the next few days? Nope, nothing happening right now. We're in kind of a down phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation, and you can tell basically that is limiting the convection. You can see all through the deep tropics here, very little in the way of convective activity, no thunderstorms of any organized nature. Add to that pretty strong upper level winds that you can see literally streaking out from the Caribbean, and that's going to limit development. Folks going to the islands down here, anywhere in the island chain, the Greater Antilles included, you're going to have a great week ahead, so take advantage of that. Hopefully folks are drying out in Trinidad especially from the passage of Brett. We saw a lot of flooding from that. And any of these tropical waves coming through, yes, they can bring a period of squalls. St. Lucia, Barbados, Guadeloupe, and points south. These low latitude waves will pass with a few gusty winds, but nothing at all seen in the global models of any consequence over the next few days. Gulf of Mexico, some disturbed weather hanging around, but nothing major. You can see this frontal boundary through here. Change of air mass coming for a good deal of the eastern 2/3 of the U.S. while it stays really hot out west, but then that pattern will flip again. Sometimes these fronts will get offshore and they focus and you get some feedback and you get a system developing, but I don't see that anytime soon. I want to show you this nice graphicast from the Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch. Close up here of the islands over here to the right. Really no major issues. You don't see any abnormally strong winds. That's confined to the central Caribbean or the central to western. Some pretty good gales blowing through here, a tight pressure gradient, and these represent your tropical waves moving through, and just generally showing you how things are overall, because the trades are not absolutely just screaming through here like we have seen in recent years where they were 30, 35 knots pretty much every day. The seas through here are not too bad. There was times when we saw some ridiculous trade winds in the last few years, and that seems to be not the case this year because it's a different type of season, and I think we see that already. All right, so this is new for showing you this year. I've shown this a while going back a few years, but first time I've brought it up. A different way to look at the Madden-Julian oscillation, or what we call the upward motion. Basically, the idea here is that if it's green, typically you have favorable upward motion, and so here is your current analysis, okay? This is the Central American coastline, South America. See here, right? There's Africa. And these little, I liken these to comic strips. Each strips of these are the same geographic area, but this is 5 days out, 10 days out, 15 days out. So what are we looking for? Well, green is typically favorable for development, and we see some green here in the eastern Pacific, and a little bit of greenage out here in the eastern Atlantic, so these tropical waves will be fairly vigorous, but overall, not a strongly positive signal in the Atlantic Basin, and that pretty much goes away over the next 5 days. And then by day 10, maybe a return to it, and then a strong signal here by day 15 in the eastern Pacific, and stronger off the coast of Africa as we get into July. That would be about the 11th of July. So we're going to need to watch. We're going to have a few days, a week or so, of probable downtime in the Atlantic, followed by the possibility of an uptick after that. The climate forecast system, the other one was the GFS. So this is the CFS, and this shows us for the next 40 days. And again, your basic outline, hopefully you know your geography. You got your western hemisphere over here, and the maritime continent over here. And right now, generally favoring the eastern Pacific ever so slightly. But look, when does the Atlantic Basin come to life? Well, at least if this is correct, it's going to be about 10 days to 2 weeks or so, and then on into July. One of our subscribers to our insider site and longtime friend to everything we do, Steve, Delaware Steve as we call him, posted this for me on Twitter, and I really like that when people will come out and, oh, look at this, have you seen this? You know, I don't catch everything, and so thanks, Steve, for pointing this out. And it does show us that, hey, you know, the green light may be coming, and this is going to happen. We're going to see these ups and downs. You're going to see an up period of activity and then a down period, and it, you know, often resembles the Madden-Julian oscillation coming around about every 30 days or so, and we saw that even in 2005. Every 2 to 3 weeks, we had a burst of development from June right on through the end of October and even into parts of 2006, if you remember that craziness. All right, we're almost done here. I wanted to take a recap of Cindy. Cindy this is a great satellite picture for so many reasons. First of all, the high-resolution nature of it, just the overall detail, is absolutely gorgeous, but you can really tell center of circulation was located over here. And of course, this is an old picture from several days ago, so don't, you know, oh my goodness, is it back? No, 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 no. This is what it looked like before landfall. And you can see the central Gulf Coast is located in here, and you have these deep feeder bands coming in with connectivity all the way down to the Caribbean, loading the area up with very heavy rainfall. And it had a fairly classic disorganized, sheared tropical cyclone, lopsided look to it. But, you know, it tried to focus the energy over here. It just couldn't. The dry air and the shear wouldn't let it. And so it was not a subtropical cyclone per se. It's just an ugly, weak, but heavily precip-loaded tropical storm. I say ugly. I mean, it's almost disrespectful to nature. That's not what I'm getting at, because this is a heck of a satellite picture. But it was definitely disorganized, mainly due to the strong upper-level winds. But you can see, even here, we had some deep convection that was developing near Lake Charles and trying to work its way in towards Houston, and it finally made landfall. And, you know, you remember, it worked its way up and then around the deep south like that. So what did it do? What was the results? Well, great people put together great graphics from lots of great different outlets, and I try to find those and show them to you. So this one shows us the rainfall, and I'm going to give myself some points because I chose the Mississippi Gulf Coast way down here as my, I don't need any updates, thank you, as my area of interest for this, because I thought that's where the biggest impact would be. And as far as rain goes, that was right on the money. Let's zoom into that. Yeah, boy, I love that zoom feature. There it is, bullseye in Mississippi, and that led to some flooding that was problematic. And then, you know, there's other streaks here of very heavy rainfall, and that extended up, I'll draw it on as yellow, towards Birmingham and Montgomery, and lesser amounts throughout the rest of Louisiana, which is great news considering what they went through last year. But look at that right there, big time rain in southern Mississippi. especially in Jackson and Harrison counties down there. And that resulted in this, near the Ocean Springs area. I took this picture. Carrie Mallory from Houston, my colleague there, came to join me for this. And this is right off of Interstate 10 near exit 57, I think it is, near Ocean Springs. And the river came up, flooded this area. Too much rainfall in too short a period of time. You got this roadway over here. I even did some aerial video. It's on the YouTube channel there. Notice, too, people talk about, well, it's just flooding. It's not that bad or whatever. I mean, some people dismiss it. Look at that nastiness. That's all oil slicks and just yucky. I mean, no way I would want to walk around in that stuff or drive in that and get that on my vehicle or whatever. But this shows you, for these people, these businesses in here, okay, maybe they're used to it, but man, this is an impact for them already, and it's only June. So, you have to sympathize. I mean, these people live here, they're not on the beach and whatever. They have homes and businesses, and they're established here. And the river comes up when you get that rainfall so quick, and that's a big deal. Okay, so people that dismissed this as being just a junk tropical storm were wrong, because it had tornadoes and there was loss of life, and we had the flooding, and so it was an impact. All right, so there you go. There's my soapbox for the day, that all storms matter. Trust me, they all affect somebody. And all disasters are local. We learned that from emergency management. When it affects you, then it really matters, right? All right, long one today, but we had a lot to cover. I hope you learned something from it. And the point, really, we got a down period coming up. Dora, we'll watch it, but no big deal. And we'll see, because July, August, and September might be busier than normal. So get ready. All right, well, that is it for me for today. I do appreciate all the people that followed along when we streamed live, either on YouTube or from our Ustream, and our subscribers, not only to YouTube, but our members at hurricanetrack.com. A great field mission, great interaction with people, nothing else like it in the world. You cannot do this on television the way that we do this on the internet, and it is fantastic, and it's wonderful to have all of you all join along. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your Monday. Thanks for tuning in to this lengthy one. I am Mark Sudduth for hurricanetrack.com. Nothing else really happening, so I'll talk to you again on Thursday.